Yay Networks.
I'm Molly Kimball. Welcome to Fueled, a wellness and nutrition podcast. I'm a registered dietitian and nutrition journalist with a passion to help people live their strongest, healthiest life possible. In my weekly TV segments and columns, there's a limited amount of time and space to cover everything, but there's so much more to share. This podcast is my opportunity to dive deeper into the topics you want to know about. We are talking loaded tea in this week's episode of Fueled Wellness and Nutrition. And let's be honest, loaded tea is having its moment. If you're not familiar with it, you're soon going to be. And it's likely that you've seen it. You just didn't really realize what you were looking at. So loaded tea, they feature this rainbow of an assortment of brightly hued teas. They've got names like Tiger Tea or Sweet Tart or Wonder Woman. And the claims, the promises of these are that it helps to increase our energy, our focus. It revs our metabolism. It can even help with weight loss. And stores selling these loaded teas have been popping up across the country. Loaded tea is sold exclusively by Herbalife affiliated nutrition clubs. We'll talk more about these. They're owned and operated by Herbalife distributors, and every shop has the word nutrition in its name. So Ideal Nutrition, Elite Nutrition, Beyond Nutrition. You get the idea. And really, we think, okay, well, what could be better? What could be more nutritious for us than a daily dose of green or black or oolong tea? Packed with antioxidants and phytochemicals, tea, of course, is the quintessential health beverage. It's revered for its simplicity and its purity. Except that loaded tea isn't so much tea, at least not in its purest form, as it is more a concoction of dietary supplements. It's a blend of caffeine and herbal stimulants that's designed to rev us up, to provide this rush of energy that's largely responsible for its growing cult following. In fact, loaded tea contains most of the same ingredients that are found in everyday energy drinks. Yet people who specifically probably choose to steer clear of energy drinks like Monster or Red Bull, they're suddenly sipping these loaded teas without a second thought. The fact that it's tea versus an energy drink gives us the illusion of wellness. It's wrapping these drinks within this health halo. So lots to talk about, learn about with loaded tea. In this week's podcast, I am joined by Maria Sylvester Terry. She's a registered dietitian with our Ochsner Eat Fit initiative. She is also our social strategy expert. She plans and guides the content for all 6 of our Eat Fit regions. Maria was actually the first person who really brought to my attention the loaded tea phenomenon. And she, as she'll talk about, has several different of these nutrition shops that the loaded tea is sold in right in her neighborhood. And so she started seeing just this plethora of people walking and sipping these really colorful drinks. And she was like, what is this? And she also started to see some really strange behaviors around the marketing and promotion or lack of advertising, and just some interesting things that kind of caught her eye, had her look into it a little bit more. And she's like, Molly, this is a really interesting thing that's happening. And it heightened my awareness of it, fortunately, because then, of course, we started getting a lot more questions about this. So Maria and I will discuss the nutritional aspects of loaded tea and whether there's a place for it in our lives. And short answer for those of y'all who are like, too late, I already love my loaded tea. There can be a place for these teas in our lives. And so we'll talk about this. We'll also explore the relationship between loaded tea and Herbalife, including the history of the company, the lack of transparency that we see, and then the strange and convoluted story about how these nutrition shops came to be, and just how it is that Herbalife distributors who historically sold supplements through multi-level marketing platforms are now selling tea from these storefronts. So we'll talk about this. We'll also uncover those bizarre restrictions and rules that Herbalife has in place when it comes to marketing and advertising. So juicy stuff.
I'm very excited to be here with you.
It's fun. So we've been seeing these popping up all over the greater New Orleans area. And like we said, they all have the word nutrition in it, which catches people's eye. And so in turn, people then ask us about it. Hey, what's this place that I've been seeing? And they've stopped in there and they've tried it.
And people want to know what has the word nutrition in it. So what is nutritious about it? And we end up seeing, like you said, these beautiful, colorful hues of teas and beverages that promise benefits like weight loss and improved health and, increasing your longevity. And we don't really know what's in them. And when you ask what's in them, it's a little bit of a goose chase getting answers. So we are also wondering too, what is so nutritious about these loaded teas?
It took us a lot of research to find the answers. Now, there's stuff if you do a Google, you can find things online that says, but we didn't want to go that route. We wanted to see it. We wanted to go into the stores, talk to the people. Different interns who've worked with us have also kind of gone in, asked questions. So different faces, different stores we've asked, and between kind of all of us putting our heads together and asking and kind of, gently pressing, we'll share with y'all the information that we've gotten. If you haven't seen these stores, now you'll probably start to notice them. Um, I think they kind of look like the look and feel like a frozen yogurt shop has.
That's exactly how I would put it, with the colors as well of their own marketing. The labeling is very similar from store to store, but like you said, each of them is named something nutrition, and it's usually related to the neighborhood or where you're going or what's relevant to that city that you're in. And you tend to notice that same vibe of adding things, putting things in just like you would at a froyo place.
There's all these canisters with all these powders in them. Now, one thing we're going to talk about the nutrition and like what's actually in these teas first. We'll kind of get into that. But one thing that I couldn't find is if those colors are natural or not. So we can't say that they are made with food dyes. That would be an assumption. But it's a strong assumption given the really vivid colors that they are.
I did really want to know that, especially since we work with that a lot. It is looking at the additives and colors of certain products that are used in any dish that you would get here. And I did see vegetable color, fruit color, juices. However, I did see yellow number, etc. So I could not definitively tell you what color additives are used in each one, but there does seem to be a little bit of a variety of how they're coloring these
And
items.
if they're using the natural plant-based colors like the fruit extracts and vegetable extracts color, they've done a really good job because they look like not your regular box of Crayola markers. They look like the ones that are the poppy fluorescents,
Yeah, the bonus box
Yeah,
that you
it's the
couldn't afford.
yeah.
I also bring into question the idea of, those vegetable colored dyes are typically more expensive, and these are relatively affordable beverages. I don't know if we should assume anything of them being these higher grade qualities.
So we can't say either way. And if someone who has a loaded tea shop is listening and you're like, hey, I'll let you know if they are or aren't, definitely we would love to hear. And so with that, what is in these drinks? Um, the formulations can vary a little bit store to store because doesn't seem to be consistency that's coming directly from Herbalife. They can vary, but pretty much all of the teas include two things that we narrowed it down to. One is Herbalife's Lift Off Energy Tablet, and then the other is their herbal tea concentrate. So when one of our interns went into one of the nutrition stores and got her tea, what she noticed that I thought was an interesting description was that this Herbalife Liftoff, it's a tablet. It's an effervescent tablet, sort of like Alka-Seltzer is like the effervescence. It gives the bubbles. It was broken up and crumbled and added in. And I thought that seems so strange, you know?
It is optional. That is the caffeine piece of it. It is optional, but it must be weird to see it crumbled in your
Yes.
tea.
And so even though the claim on the loaded teas is that they are sweetened with stevia, so stevia being a natural plant-based sweetener, which is great. We love that they're sweetened with stevia. The Herbalife Liftoff tablet that's optional to get crumbled into your drink. Not only does it have corn syrup solids, and it's made with the artificial sweetener sucralose. So Splenda is what sweetens that, and that's one that also does have the artificial food dye yellow number 6. So what that liftoff is, though, it's basically an intense stimulant tablet, and the ingredients in that liftoff are essentially what's in a Red Bull. So you're adding what's already a caffeinated tea. If you get that liftoff add-in, which you're kind of prompted to, if you want any of these add-ins, you're basically adding the stimulant equivalent of an energy drink into that tea already.
Right. And you find that the big marketing piece of this is that, well, they're only 24 calories. So you think, well, what's a little bit of energy? It's only 24 calories. It's just a drink. But we haven't even named the other elements that go into these teas, like the sweeteners. And yes, they are sugar free, but those are also not always going to be sweetened with stevia, Molly. Those are going to be other artificial sweeteners and colors. There's a lot more that goes into this than a tablet and, a tea powder and water.
And tea powder is the way that I would say it, because when we think tea, I think our friend Mimsy Ladner has Gachi tea, and Gachi tea, actually, we've done a podcast with her before. If you're interested, scroll back. She imports tea leaves from tea farms all over the country, and she is just like an ambassador for purity when it comes to tea. And I was actually talking with her about this, and I mean, it has to be just so cringe inducing to someone like her who imports tea. She takes such care for how they're sourced, how they're processed. And she doesn't even like tea. Like if you get Republic of Tea that's in the bags at the grocery store, I use that every morning in my little concoction that I make. She doesn't even like that. Like that's not pure enough. It needs to be tea that's just loose that you're going to, steep yourself. So when you think about tea though, and you think, what we normally perceive as tea, that's not what this is. It's, as Maria said, it's basically tea powder. And the powder, so it's the furthest thing from pure tea. The first ingredients are maltodextrin and fructose,
Which are
basically carbs and sugars.
right.
And then powdered tea extracts, and then which naturally have caffeine. Now, powdered tea extracts, not a bad thing. It doesn't necessarily mean it's high quality tea. Usually things like that are going to kind of be the leftovers and the scraps of it, but that's not a bad thing. If you're having black tea extract or green tea extract, you're still going to get some of the antioxidant benefits, and that's still a decent product. But combining it with maltodextrin and fructose, but then on top of that, caffeine powder is added to that. So you've got this caffeine powdered tea, and then you're putting what would be that liftoff tablet into it, and you've got a nice little fully loaded, rev you up drink.
Yeah, the name suits it.
Yeah.
There's something else I definitely want to bring up here when it comes to naming these, not so much as foods, but as supplements. And so supplements are not going to be regulated the same way that food will be. And maybe Mimsy can share a little bit on this, or any of you tea experts. I'm not sure that tea is evaluated the same way that Herbalife tea is evaluated, and potentially and hopefully at a higher level. And so what that also means is that, sure, these are the ingredients listed on the label, but have they been tested for fillers? Have they been tested for metals? Have they been tested for any other chemicals that could be dangerous for us?
Right, which the FDA is normally going to get that as it's a food product. So as you said, the loaded tea has just 24 calories. It's zero sugar, which is really appealing, but it's really not natural. And then it's the furthest thing from a natural tea. And with the options for these add-ins that can really, really amp up the intensity of it. And when we have something like this, it's not just caffeine, like if you had an extra cup of coffee. These are multiple stimulants. There's pure caffeine. There's also herbal stimulants, ginseng, guarana. Again, those things that are found in something like Rockstar, Monster Energy Drink, Red Bull. Like if someone's listening to this and you're like, oh, I don't like it when my daughter drinks Red Bull, but you see her drinking a loaded tea, same thing. And the problem with this is that it can leave us feeling jittery, spikes our heart rate, our blood pressure. It can affect our mood. But what can also happen, and this can happen really quickly, is it can set us up on that cycle to where we're craving more and more because we have it, someone has it in the afternoon. Some of the tea shops, the loaded tea shops we see are by high schools. And you see high school girls.
I sure do.
I saw one yesterday walking out of one, and it was right before 4 p.m. And so making the assumption that she might have had a lift off in there at 4 p.m., revving up with that much caffeine. Is she sleeping well? Likely not. So if we're having these, especially later in the day, it can interfere with our sleep. Then we wake up feeling sluggish, and we want more of the stimulant for this pick-me-up. And then very quickly, we've created this reliance on stimulants like this.
Right. Under the guise of it being innocent, right? Fruity Pebbles, Unicorn, Wonder Woman, whatever they're called. And so you have a 16-year-old girl, and Molly's not wrong. I'll see hordes of girls that will cross the street to go and get their tea in large containers. These are not small, 8-ounce cups that, I know it one might seem harmless, but the idea that they have these innocent names and then you're going to buy them and it's so easy to just keep going and going and going. It creates that habit. It's fun, they're colorful, they're Instagrammable. But what are they really doing to our bodies over time? It's something to really think about.
You nailed it too when you said they're Instagrammable. I think that could be, maybe it's part of the reason they're so vividly colored. Maybe it's not, but it sure makes them post well on social media. And that is largely, part of the reason for the spread and the popularity of them. People see others talking about it.
Sure. And you think, well, it's a health product too. I can get thin with this. I can be energized. I can skip coffee. And we have these other foods and drinks in our society that get villainized. And people talk badly about soda and coffee and all these other things. But loaded teas are kind of all, are all right up in that family of things we should be moderating.
And let's talk about the vagueness, the lack of clarity when it comes to loaded tea. And because if you are wanting to find the full ingredients or the full nutrition facts, it's anything but straightforward. You really can't.
Right. We had one intern who went to one shop and found that the owners were very evasive. And then another one went to one that's been around for a while and that owner was more forthcoming. So it depends on the distributor, which I question how trustworthy is that distributor if they're not willing to share what this product is that they're investing their money in as well, which we'll get to that in a minute too.
And so it's hard to find a label about this product that you're consuming, but the storefronts themselves are really vague also. And like we said earlier, loaded tea, it's sold by Herbalife affiliated nutrition clubs. And this is the strangest thing. So Herbalife doesn't even look at these as a retail storefront like you would think of something like a GNC. They're actually designated as nutrition clubs that are owned and operated by Herbalife distributors.
Right. This is a brick and mortar variation of the Hey Girl DM message that you would get from someone selling a skincare product or a protein shake. This is that in a brick and mortar version. And it is intentional that you don't know that it's Herbalife. It is intentional that it is vague for all of the reasons that we are about to share.
So we found online, there's a document, it was from 2019, and it outlines basically the Herbalife Nutrition Club rules. And I was reading it to Brad last night. I was like, this is so weird. Because I was trying to explain to him. And I was like, no, they can't advertise in the traditional sense. And they can't, they're very limited. And so what we found on this was, so they referred to them as commercial clubs, but these nutrition clubs, they specify in this document that they are not retail establishments, they're not cafes, they're not restaurants. And as it says, this is how it's worded in there, to avoid any misconceptions by passersby, the clubs may not have outdoor seating and the signage can't display any Herbalife branding. It can also not imply that any Herbalife nutrition products are available for purchase. So they do they're very specific about keeping the Herbalife brand separate from these nutrition shops.
Entirely. And that is because of the reputation of Herbalife. And also, I think it creates this illusion of, wait, you don't have a job anymore? You just run this nutrition shop? I want to know more. I want that financial freedom too. And it creates a sort of trust that you have to have in the distributor. And then they become your sponsor.
And it's the strangest thing because advertising and promotions just across the board are really strictly limited. And clubs are specifically clubs. We'll call them stores for the purposes of this, but they call them clubs. But stores are specifically instructed to not attract walk-in traffic. What store what store is selling things like a beverage that people can consume doesn't want walk-in traffic? And the reason they say is because personal action supports direct selling. And this is according to those Herbalife Nutrition Club rules that we pulled. And I'll actually link to that in the podcast notes because I think that it's a fascinating document. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's take a minute to talk about our sponsor for this week's episode, Pharmaca. And we're always talking about on this podcast that staying healthy from the inside out has never been more important. From the foods we eat to the supplements we take, the products we use on our skin, we want to trust every single ingredient. And that's why there's Pharmaca. For over 20 years, Pharmaca has been at the forefront of natural health and beauty innovation, helping us all to make healthier choices. And Pharmaca has an open-minded, research-backed, holistic approach to healthy living. That's why Pharmaca is the trusted source for herbal and homeopathic formulas, the highest quality vitamins, and new organic, cruelty-free beauty options that'll make your skin feel as good as it looks. People love Pharmaca. Their products have thousands of 5-star reviews. And Pharmaca has a serious vetting process. Their full team of over 350 credentialed professionals rigorously audit every single brand for transparency, sustainability, and sourcing. Plus, Pharmaca products are backed with Pharmaca's 100% satisfaction guarantee. Go to pharmaca.com/fueled right now and save 20% off your first order. That's Pharmaca's best offer, and it's only good for a limited time. That's pharmaca.com. That's spelled PHARMACA.com/fueled right now for 20% off. Pharmaca.com/fueled. Okay, you also you saw the strangest thing, and I think you saw it multiple times with a whole bunch of yard signs advertising one of these nutrition stores.
Yes. So it was shortly after going on an Instagram rant about a brand new Loaded Tea shop in my neighborhood. The next day, I am walking my dog down the street and I see the Loaded Tea signs. They're yard signs and they're not in people's yards. They're just in like a neutral ground, the neutral ground really of my neighborhood.
In New Orleans, they call it neutral grounds. Other cities call it boulevard or median.
Sure.
Yeah, neutral ground.
And I'm walking and I see a car pull up and stop very quickly. And someone jumps out, takes the yard signs and jumps back.
And it was a lot of yard signs.
It was a lot. And so they were driving down this main drag, picking up all the signs. And I thought, well, what is that about? And that's when I had a conversation with you about this direct sales and advertising. They can't leave those signs up very long. So there are people advertising, but they are being very sneaky about it. And
so they're skirting the rules of the Herbalife Nutrition Club rules.
Yes, I believe so. I believe so because we are reading the rules right in front of us and it says you can't do something like that. So that was, it was funny. I mean, they were very nice people. I did greet them.
They waved at you.
They waved and I thought, this is not happening right now. But to think that those signs went up and went down multiple
because
times.
You kept seeing them.
I kept seeing them and then I kept not seeing them. So they were going out and up like on the cover of darkness. It was
the
strange.
Strangest thing.
Yeah, it was very strange. So I have to give them kudos for taking them down. Maybe there's some time limit. Maybe there's an amount of time they're allowed to market or advertise. But the truth of the matter is no one is seeing them take them down and put them back up, right? So I just happened to see it. And that's when really the idea of this podcast kind of happened as we started talking about, well, what is going on?
What is happening here? Yeah. It's just strange. It's not how like a normal business that when you think of a normal storefront and a normal retail operation, it's not that. It's not run as a retail establishment. It's run as a club. And the rules are just very strange. So, and I will link to the Herbalife Nutrition Club rules. It is a fascinating read. So why is there all this cryptic weirdness about these stores and like the limitations on what they can and can't do?
Sure. I think it's important to go in reverse and look back at where Herbalife has come from and what it has been through as an organization, which is international. It is not just in our country, it is all over. And there are two issues I want to hit on. One is the financial part. So we'll talk about the health and then we'll talk about wealth, right? So those are the two words that you would hear from the big top people of the pyramid say, well, this is your way to help other people be healthy and for you to become wealthy.
That's almost like a tagline.
It is their tagline. Yep. It's a two-way street of health and wealth. That's a direct quote from their director, their person. And so the idea is that you are able to earn more money when you become what's called an upline. And as an upline, you can bring on new distributors who buy from you, and then you make money when your downline starts purchasing these products. So the idea was that it was very similar to selling, like I mentioned before, skincare products, Beachbody products, all of that type of stuff. And I
think even people listening to this, everyone's been sold to on something like this. Hey,
yes.
Do you have a minute? And then like, I even think about like, some of Brad's friends in like high school or college, his mom, bless her heart, she sat through so many knife displays where they would like be selling like sets of knives that could cut through whatever. and she would buy from each of them.
Right.
But that was that. It was multi-level marketing at its finest. Yeah.
Right. No one is safe.
Right.
No one is safe, especially with the knives. Goodness. So that came to a stop for Herbalife when they faced a lawsuit and they faced charges from the FTC for racketeering. And so that is because they were accused of essentially predatory, very vague practices that would put people in so much debt. Unfair amounts of debt, because the idea that was drilled into the heads of distributors is to duplicate, replicate, recruit, and so bring in more people, and they want to participate, so they're putting their charges on credit cards. They're, buying store space. They are putting their rent on credit cards. They are making terrible financial decisions because of the promise of becoming wealthy. And so what happens from that point of view? I mean, it's not a secret. So we have some investors who decided, there's a very, well-known hedge fund investor who bet against Herbalife, like $1 billion short position. And he found that this position had no more, this business had no real moral standing. It was predatory. It was confusing. It was vague.
It's a product that's not a healthy product for people.
Correct. And there's the issue of it being so vague about nutrition. So he bets against Herbalife, and that position, you can learn all about that in betting against Zero.
Tell us about betting against Zero.
Sure. So this is a great documentary. If you're not, maybe it's not so much a nutrition documentary as much as it is about finance. And so having the short position against Herbalife was not a popular decision, because Herbalife was kind of like the cool kid. Everybody you knew was in Herbalife. Like, there were people who could recruit your taxi driver, the guy at the laundromat, the gas station. If you were really charismatic, you could recruit anyone. And by having more recruits, you become an upline, you make more money, right? So this guy's kind of, would you say, betting against the new American dream that so many people want, that so many people were just itching for. They thought, well, I can put in this hard work of becoming a new business owner, not realizing that they're not the business owner. Herbalife is, the top of the pyramid is. So he takes this position, and then it becomes a sort of a war of investors who are saying, no, don't bet against buy. And so that's exactly what happened, is more people bought shares of Herbalife because that moral ground, it wasn't the argument that was needed, and Herbalife was able to continue. However, at that same time is when the FTC came through with their charges. And so that's where things changed for Herbalife, where you don't see people direct selling anymore, but you do see shops pop up. I mean, Molly, one is within a half a mile of each, two or a half a mile apart in my neighborhood. Well, what kind of business thought is that? Like that, what kind
There's
of
no
strategy is that?
restrictions.
And there's no restrictions because Herbalife still makes money as long as those two, quote, business owners are buying product. It doesn't matter if they can't get enough new recruits, AKA people buying loaded teas, right? It does not matter because Herbalife still makes money. So they don't really care so much. There is, I think if you read the 20-page document here, I think they have to be a certain number of feet or miles apart. But it's certainly not very far because of their ability to make more money. And it doesn't matter if anybody gets cut, if anybody loses money, if anybody loses their house or can't pay their bills, Herbalife still makes money, which is why I stand by the idea that while your friend might be an Herbalife nutrition shop owner and you want to support local, if you really want to support that person, we want to make sure that they have a truly livable income.
And from what we read, most don't. And that's kind of where so in years back, there was the Federal Trade Commission, as Maria said, filed a lawsuit against Herbalife that ended up with a 2016 settlement of $200 million paid out. And, this was because, again, the deception that was claimed against Herbalife. But part of that also, as Maria was saying, it basically included an order that Herbalife had to restructure and reshape its entire business model. So it's almost like what used to be the traditional multi-level marketing kind of pyramid approach is now brick and mortar. So when you walk into one, you don't even realize that you're walking into something that is that same type of an approach, because we're not used to that. You walk into a store and you think it's it's either a corporate store or it's locally owned. Like, a Smoothie King is a Smoothie King, but this is not the same.
Right. And it's kind of like going to a skincare store and getting Rodan and Fields, but not
Yes.
knowing that that's what you're getting, thinking you're getting a local product, thinking you're getting this new awesome option. It is scary to think that it is that concealed.
Yes. Yes. So what I've learned, yeah.
So what I have learned is in my research on loaded teas is that, if you don't have this quite recruitment of downlines, like who do your recruiters become? Your customers. And so if you can offer your customers a discount, $1 or whatever it is that you can offer them off of the cost of their loaded tea by sharing a review on Facebook, well, you have yourself a recruiter now. And so that's why you'll see in Facebook groups, on Facebook feeds, on Instagram, these thorough and beautiful photos, thorough captions of, oh, I love this tea and this is the flavor and this is the number of calories. These are the ingredients. You get this full review because that person is getting a perk. And so that is the
Immediately
perk.
right there.
Immediately right there. In fact, one of our interns was asked if she could write a review, but she hadn't received the drink yet.
She was horrified about it because they wanted her to basically do a review, a testimonial, and kind of give like some positive props about it on social media. And she was horrified because she's like, I hadn't even received the product in my hand. And before I even got it, before he even made the drink, he wanted her to give a shout out on Facebook for $1 off of her purchase. And I thought it was funny because she said it felt especially sinister to her. And I thought sinister was the funniest word, She said it felt especially sinister to encourage people to promote something that they have not even tried yet. Now, that's not always the case. I mean, some people are happily sipping away as they're posting. But in this case, she had never tried it in her life. And he's like, oh, shout out about it and you'll get $1 off. And of course, how many people are like, yeah, why not?
Certainly. It's so predatory, especially in the climate now of people having really tight pockets. And maybe they do want to quote support local. They go to this tea shop, they can save $1. And maybe they can get their kid a drink too. It seems to pay for itself, right? Oh, well, I can keep up with this healthy habit for a cheap way. It's cheaper than a gym membership. I'm speeding up my metabolism. We get a lot of false promises here, and unfortunately so predatory with the promise of it also being more affordable.
What else was in the documentary? Because I haven't watched it yet, but I'm going to link to it. Is the link to the documentary on Amazon? So do you have to have Amazon Prime?
So you have to have Amazon Prime. I paid $2.99 to rent it, and the rental lasts a few days. It focused primarily on how predatory Herbalife is in the Latinx community, and how so many people, and this is true of MLMs everywhere, Molly, that
multi-level marketing's everywhere.
Yes. It's true that they tell you to recruit your friends and your family. And so what happens when you can't foot the bill anymore? You're letting down your upline. What if your upline is your aunt? What if your upline is your mother or your best friend from high school? And so it's not only destroying communities financially, it's also destroying relationships. And Herbalife told them to do that. They said, by any means necessary, recruit, recruit, recruit. Your job is not to sell the shakes. Your job, your money is not made selling product. Your money is made recruiting.
And this is especially kind of the older model, which is what the lawsuit came through from.
Yes, this is the older model. And so what that led to is widespread buy-in, and then often so frequent people dropping out. There's a great website, I think it's Facts About Herbalife, and they share how many people drop out every minute from Herbalife.
Every minute?
Mm-hmm. And
is it still?
It's still up
because
there.
It's probably.
I wonder, it's updated 2019, the website. So I'm curious if it's still updated, but I find that what a disappointment. These are people that may have emigrated here. They may have had to work 2-3 jobs, may have had to learn a new language, and they're thinking, oh, I can help my community get healthy. That we have a higher rate of, say, a certain chronic disease. Like I can help people. And it's people with good intentions being manipulated by a corporation that's now like a $300 million organization that has they've left these people hanging.
And interesting too, like people, there's horror stories when you read these, and you read the accounts that were in the lawsuit, which was that huge $200 million settlement. There's also another lawsuit, I believe, that has been brought back into courts that's currently still pending. But when you read the stories of these people and what they lost with the faith that they had in it, the gamble, the risk that they took, maybe what they stepped away from, did they have what was a steady, good job, but maybe the grass was greener. So they stepped away from it, thinking they were going to like strike it big, and then things start to crumble. And so the stories just go on and on and on that are really heartbreaking. And so I think for us, as we're talking about it, it's not just to say, okay, be cautious. And if you are drinking these teas, know what you're getting. But it's also from the distributor side, be cautious.
Without a doubt, be cautious and be kind. Right? A lot of this business isn't kind. It's not thoughtful to community. It's not thoughtful to our health nor our wealth. And those are the two words that are so frequently used by Herbalife that it can promote.
So check out the documentary. We'll link to that if you have Amazon Prime. Fascinating, fascinating stuff.
So Molly, when you say that, it crumbles, well, who's there to clean up that mess? Well, let's say I'm crumbling and I can't make sales and I have thousands of dollars of product in my garage and I don't know what to do with it. You know how I'm going to get out of it? I'm going to convince someone near me, someone close to me who believes in me and trusts me, that I have this great business opportunity for them. And that if they, I have a place for you, I'll be your sponsor and you can take my rent, you can take my storefront. I have all this product and I'll help you paint and I'll help you open and it will be great. But then I can bow out and not be associated anymore. And you're stuck with my old quote business opportunity that was crumbling.
And that's what the tea storefronts as they stand.
Right. Well, if you're a tea storefront person, you're not a business owner, you're a distributor. So let's say you have thousands of dollars of product that you need to sell. Well, what happens when you can't quite sell it? You have to get rid of it somehow. It either expires and you have to throw it out and you lose all that money. Or what if you have thousands and thousands invested? You might have to get someone to take it over for you. And that's going to require some level of deceit.
And it goes beyond the United States. This is far-reaching.
Yeah. So if you look up Herbalife internationally, it is illegal as a business in Belgium. There are lawsuits in China. There are lawsuits in Italy. There was a case study in India about a 24-year-old girl who died from liver failure from these products. It is an international issue. So what about having loaded teas every once in a while? How might that affect your health? What are the impacts of it? I think to myself, well, how does it affect my insides? I want to know that. And so there are some studies of what happens to your liver. Liver's of it's very special concern because we are detoxing from whatever it is that we're putting into our body all the time. Any level of chemical or toxin.
And that's our liver's main role.
Right, absolutely. And it's a big job. And so if we are intaking a lot of Herbalife products, these studies are finding that you do tend to have increased liver values like your ALT, your alkaline phosphatase. And it's hard to pinpoint which products because many Herbalife users use multiple products. So it's hard to say it's the lift off. It's hard to say that it's the protein shake. It's hard to say any of it because many people are buying shakes and loaded teas. So
yeah, we're talking mostly loaded teas here, but we should mention they have shakes. They have like kids tea that are decaffeinated. Yeah.
Yes.
So there are other products. We're talking just mostly loaded tea because that seems to be the most popular.
Yes. And so with that in mind, it comes down to how often are you drinking these? How much of these products are you taking in? Because that can affect your liver health. If you have, I was interning with a dietitian who bought a loaded tea on our lunch break and she broke out in a red flush over her face, which as a dietitian, I know is a niacin flush because of the overload of B vitamins. Yes, of course, you can excrete them in urine, but an overload of B vitamins could also stop you in your tracks and keep you from taking your next appointment because you're sweating, your heartbeat is racing, and your face is beet red.
You're like the intern, like watching, like, what is happening?
It was scary for both of us.
Well, it's funny because the niacin that's added to energy drinks, it's roughly the same level of niacin that is added to the lift off that goes into the loaded teas. And people, some people experience what the dietitian that you were interning for had, but others experience kind of like a skin tingling sensation, and but they like it. They consider this part of that rush and that energy. It's like they feel like they're revved up, they feel like they're hopped up, their skin's tingling a little bit, and that's all seen as a benefit. You know?
Yeah, the skin crawling doesn't do it for me. So thinking about how much is added to these products and the fact that they're not regulated, you really truly don't know these proportions and what you're taking in frequently. So I would say be cautious. If you have kidney or liver conditions, these are not products that would probably be recommended by your doctor. Obviously, speak to your professional, your health professional about it. Um,
Liver, kidney, also heart.
sure. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And so when we try to answer the question, does loaded tea have any place in an otherwise healthy diet? I look at these as I've kind of been making the comparison through this about comparing these to an energy drink. And I think there's very few people that would say that an energy drink is quote healthy. But still many people can drink them in a responsible manner and they can have one a day. They are not creating more of a reliance where they're having more and more and more. They may have that one a day and they're doing it in place of other caffeinated beverages. And so they're not getting their caffeine overload for the day, which we should say too. These teas can range up to 160 or 200 or more milligrams of caffeine for the day. Most major health organizations will say keep it under 300 to 400 milligrams. I find 300 is a good upper limit. Once you start to hit 400 or more, why do you need so much caffeine through the
Right,
day? You know,
right.
what are
What
we
are we
doing with this?
masking?
And so kind of looking to see what else am I doing that I'm kind of band-aiding my energy with this. But the reality is that, okay, do I want people to drink energy drinks? No. Is it something we recommend? Absolutely not. But if someone says, I have one a day, this is how I do it, then if they were my client, I would probably find a way to work around that. And I would see loaded teas in the same category. Um, one thing that I would recommend that if someone is like, man, I really love it though. I love the way the mermaid taste, the sweet tart or the Wonder Woman tea. Because we all just didn't say this. There's like 50 different names. And when you go in and you're looking at the chalkboard up there, it's like overload. You would have no idea what you wanted to get. You would have to have them tell you what you wanted to get.
I think that's part of the allure of coming back is there's so many more to try.
Right. I saw so many colors here. I saw
Right.
many names and flavor, and they kind of categorize them by flavors on the
Mhm.
boards that I've seen, where it'll be like a lemon lime flavor, a berry flavor, and each one might have like 10 to 20 options. So if you say, too late, Molly, Maria, I've already I'm already, that train has left the station. I love these loaded teas. I would say definitely limit it to one a day, not after lunchtime, making sure that this is in place of your other caffeinated beverages, not on top of it. And then I also am all about like going halvesies. So either drink half, save the other half for the next day, or dilute it with like real herbal iced tea so that you're going 50-50, diluting it double strength. So you've got more volume. And there's so many flavored herbal teas. So if you've got a berry flavored loaded tea, you can get a berry herbal tea at the grocery store, brew it, go halvesies, gives you more volume, and then there's more to save for the next day. So there's still ways that you could do it.
Yeah, I like that idea of more, like having more for later, having more for the next day, because we can get so caught up in the idea of more of a rush, more of a fix, more bang for your buck, less calories, more energy, without realizing, well, maybe we just needed a bigger lunch, maybe we needed a bigger breakfast,
Right.
and that's
Or
also
more
where,
sleep.
or more sleep, or less mindless scrolling. There are so many other things that help support our energy that if we are relying on one or two or more loaded teas, not only is that a financial hindrance, right, of spending that much money, this is also something that could deeply affect your health and mask other behaviors that could use some improvement in your life.
100%. And when we are saying drink half, save the other half, as we're talking right now, Maria and I are both drinking Topo Chico. I'm such a liquid consumer. I have two bottles in front of me, and one is completely empty, one is halfway empty because I'm like such a sipper, a drinker. So for people would say like, who's going to drink half of something and put it back? I mean, there are people who are not big consumers and they would easily drink half and put it back. But these are, I don't know if they're 20-ounce cups. They look like ballpark 20-ounce. They're
Mhm.
bigger than 16. They may not be 24-ounce. It's a lot in there. And so you can definitely save it. You could yeah. So I think that would be I'm thinking the ice might dilute it. So then, you have to figure that out. If you want to pull some of that out of there, you don't want to dilute it, whatever it is. But whatever you're going to do, if you are going to have it, not having it after lunch, ideally, or at least early in your afternoon so that you're not infringing on that sleep time. And then looking at other parts of your life, like Maria said, what else is happening that we're feeling that we need that reliance? Is it I needed a bigger lunch, and so that's why my energy was dipping. I didn't have any protein at lunch. I needed to add more protein at my breakfast or my lunch, or I haven't been bringing an afternoon snack. And if I have that protein-rich afternoon snack, and maybe I get a little 5-minute movement break, you feel a heck of a lot better, and you don't need that loaded tea. So kind of thinking what else is happening in your day that you're band-aiding it to try to boost this energy. All right. So any last thoughts as we wrap up?
Yes. So I think, personally, this is the second time on the podcast.
Yes.
And we spent a long time going through what I felt about multi-level marketing last time. So personally, professionally, ethically, I don't see myself spending my money supporting this. However, there are people putting their time and their effort and their money into these storefronts, into these products, and they just want to sell them and they want to advertise them to their friends and bring more people in. And in this current state of the economy, I'm not here to make anyone feel bad about that. You need to manage your business ethically as you can. And so if you have a friend who says, hey, I'm opening this shop and you want to go and support them, there are ways to support others, maybe without totally investing into loaded teas every single day. Maybe you do opt for a loaded tea and have half today, half tomorrow. Maybe you choose the kids' tea, which doesn't have caffeine in it. Maybe you choose a shake that doesn't have caffeine in it, or you can get the tea without the liftoff. And you know that tea powder is coming from tea at some point. So there are ways to support them. We're not saying, run them out of town or don't support them whatsoever, but do make a conscious, ethical choice that feels right for you, for your health, and for your wallet.
Wonder if any distributors are listening, how they would feel about being more forthcoming about what is in it. So if you have people coming in and, because normally we would have things that might have a warning with it. If you look at the box of Liftoff, there's a whole host. It's like a whole side panel of the box that has warnings and contraindications of who shouldn't take it. But none of that is in the store. And so I wonder, if it's possible, we haven't read all of the 20 pages of the club rules. And so it may not be, but I think that as I scanned through it, I didn't see this. Would it be possible for them to be more forthcoming? So when someone says, what is in this, to tell them, because I think that's part of what is behind us kind of going, really, because it's not very straightforward. And so I feel like if something, we may not love what it is, but I would love it a lot more if it was easier for the consumers to understand what they're putting into their bodies.
Right, because right now consumers are left to make their own assumptions, and those assumptions are often very positive and optimistic of what these products can do for their health. And so we don't want to make false promises. We don't want to make health claims about these products without any true evidence. We want to make just the facts clear. Whatever facts you do have about these products, it is fair to share, and people will be grateful. You might get more customers who do trust you and do want to support you because you're more forthcoming with that information.
And they feel like you have their best interest in mind.
Absolutely. Yes.
All right. Well, thanks, Maria. This has been a fun one.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me again.
So I'm grateful, as always, for Maria for lots of reasons and for joining me on this podcast. She has great insight into the full spectrum of nutrition. And you heard, she's done a lot of research. She's done a lot of exploring the multi-level marketing from the consumer perspective, but also from the distributor perspective and how it affects all of us. And there's not really an easy answer. It's not very black and white. This topic is very colorful, as the teas are, but there's different nuances. And just as we said, some people may be able to safely consume an energy drink once a day, and that's their choice for their caffeine source instead of coffee or tea or whatever. And that works for them. That's safe for them. They're not having any other adverse effects. It doesn't affect their sleep, and that's fine. Is it what we would say is healthy? No, but there's a lot of things that we are trying to balance and negotiate in our lives. And we're very aware that, if we have what might be considered a vice, but we keep it in check and we keep it, controlled, then that's okay. And that can work for us. For others though, knowing what is in these products is going to be really key, because there might be specific reasons that we do need to avoid it. So again, let us know what you think. If you have been sipping these and you're making some changes, or maybe you're going to change how you order it, let us know. And I know that this might be a topic that gets under some people's skin. It might be something that you've been loving doing, or we might have some distributors listening to this. And again, all of this is to say, let's just be as open as possible, as supportive as possible with where people are coming to us from. So as consumers are coming into the stores, let's help educate them, and let's help find out what's going on with them personally, and help find a product that is best for them. And to the consumers who are listening, ask questions, share what's going on with you. You may feel like, I don't want to tell this clerk that I have, hypertension. Tell them, share it, because in these situations, that can be important information for them to know. And it's not putting everything out there, but you can just let them know really easily, hey, I have diabetes. I'm concerned about XYZ, or I have high blood pressure. I really try to avoid stimulants. So sharing this on both ends, and I think just being as open as possible, is going to help make all of this something that can be enjoyed and consumed as safely as possible. So I'll include the links that Maria and I mentioned in the show notes of this episode. And as always, let me know what you think. You can email me, you can message me on social. I am registered dietitian Molly Kimball, and you've been listening to Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, the podcast. If you would like more Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, please head over to mollykimball.com, and you can follow me, Molly Kimball RD, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And if you haven't yet, please go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Join us next week for another dose of Fueled Wellness and Nutrition. Thanks for listening, and stay focused on living your strongest, healthiest life.